So, as Teresa said, here we are, Rosh Hashanah 5782, in the midst of a bizarre and mystifying time. It feels like way back in the day when our people wandered in the wilderness. They'd escaped slavery in Egypt, but found themselves not in the promised land, but in a harsh terrain surrounded by hostile people, at risk of dying of thirst, unsure of what was ahead. Here we are welcoming a new year in such a fraught, strange moment. It's a second Rosh Hashanah greeted not with throngs of friends and guests excitedly filling the seats at St. Bart's, surrounded with the strains of our chorus band and strings, but instead sitting at home, glued to a screen filled with loving faces of our CBH family members in tiny boxes just beyond reach. And here we are at a CBH that is continuing to thrive in its 36th year, but doing so in an utterly unfamiliar way. We are here with the powerful prayer leadership of Brad, Gayan, and Will, but without Rabbi Josh, who stood in this place for 22 years. And with me, a rabbi who's joined this congregation for this time of transition, but who's barely met anyone in person due to the pandemic. Here we are, marking the turn of the year as Jews have done throughout the ages, but in a completely foreign way, gathering physically in a synagogue, naturally and expected for 2,000 years, has suddenly become impossible over the past year and a half. We're figuring out new ways of worshiping, learning, and connecting. And it is weird. And here we are in the midst of a fourth wave of a seemingly endless pandemic. We've lived through lockdown, isolation, loss, and fear. We've gone from jubilation as we began to let our guard down this summer and to begin to gather, to fear of the most mundane interactions. We are in the wilderness. As we say in Yiddish, we are nicht dahin und nicht daher. We are neither here nor there. We are neither back in the familiarity and predictability of Egypt, nor are we in the promised land. We are wandering like our people in days of old. How will we navigate this perplexing terrain? As the psalmist wonders, Me'ayin yavo ezri, whence shall our help come? We are in the wilderness, or as an anthropologist might put it, we are in a liminal place. In Latin, a limen is the stone at the threshold of a doorway. A liminal stage is the heart of a process of transition. According to anthropologist Victor Turner, there are three parts to a transition. The first part of a transition is the ending or separation. Someone dies. You get an agreement of sale on your home, Greg, but you haven't bought a new one. Your kid gets accepted to college, but hasn't gone yet. In the separation phase, we experience joy, but also often loss, grief, or anger. For CBH, this past year has been a time of leavings, shock and sadness in the face of so many farewells, so much uncertainty. In the time of COVID, the sudden shutdown robbed us of any sense of normalcy. We were shocked to lose access to the simplest everyday activities like going to school or work, shopping in a store, or socializing with friends. We were stunned, bewildered, depressed. The second phase of a transition is the liminal, the in-between, the threshold. You are engaged, not single anymore, but not yet married. You've given notice you're leaving a job, but have not yet left. You've lost a family member, but the funeral has not yet happened. You're not officially a mourner, but you certainly are not in your ordinary life. Or, in my case, you're 39 weeks pregnant with twins. You're hospitalized, awaiting the morning when labor will be induced because your blood pressure can't take it anymore. You are lying in the narrow hospital cot with your beloved, holding on to one another, terrified, and saying to one another, "What were we thinking?" You're not yet the parents of these babies, but your life is already forever changed. You cannot, even though you wish to, go home and forget all about it. In the liminal place, we are in between. What was is no longer what is, but the shape of the future is not yet clear. We are confused, afraid of the unknown. The final stage of the transition is reincorporation, or the new beginning. You emerge from a year of mourning a parent. You remarry after a divorce. You move into your new home. You bring your babies home and begin to figure out how to be a family of 5. You are in the new normal. You settle down, you get accustomed, you make new patterns and structures. Let's look more closely at where we are right now, the liminal place. The liminal place is characterized by ambiguity and fear, uncertainty and danger. The structures that defined our normal are gone. We don't know how to move forward. According to spiritual director Susan Beaumont, in the liminal phase, we wonder, who are we? Whose are we? The Israelites in the wilderness worried about how they could survive. They longed for and even romanticized Egypt. Oh, for the cucumbers and watermelons. Oh, for the flesh pots, they said, forgetting, of course, the brutality and dehumanization of slavery. In this time of pandemic, when we are not at all back to normal, we are still in a liminal place. We're called to continue to reinvent how we work, study, gather, and act for justice. We continue to experience disappointment and loss without much, if any, opportunity to grieve. The pandemic has laid bare deep fault lines in our society we can no longer ignore. Racism, intractable poverty, educational inequity. The earth itself is crying out, you must not go back. Do not keep going as you have. The liminal place, though, is not just terror and confusion. It is also a place of possibility. When old structures and roles are taken away, a new sense of social connection can emerge. Victor Turner called this kind of bond communitas, a sense of solidarity and equality. We are all in this together. We can get through it if we help each other. So the Jewish people went from being a ragtag band of fugitives to becoming one people in the wilderness. In the open and fluid space of the in-between, there is opportunity. Victor Turner teaches that the liminal is a realm of pure possibility. The liminal place is a space for questioning what is, experimenting, and creating the new. There's freedom to imagine and dream. Ed Catmull, the founder of Pixar, says, there is a sweet spot between the known and unknown where originality happens. The key is to be able to linger there without panicking. The key is to be able to linger there without panicking. For us at CBH, this transitional time, this liminal space is also a time of possibility. We get to think up, how do we want to do things now? We can discern what we will keep and what we will discard from past ways of doing and being together. We can experiment with different ways of praying and gathering, learning and caring for one another. And most importantly, we get to dream up the CBH of the future, to envisage what we want for this beloved community in its next phase. We'll be reflecting and experimenting and developing visions together over the coming year. We'll be creating new structures to empower members to shape CBH's program and shared life. Our Envisioning CBH Task Force will guide us in imagining the future through small group conversations in the coming months. These focus groups will ask, what do you wish for our community's future? And equally importantly, what are you so excited about that you will dedicate your time, talents, and resources to manifest? The future of CBH will emerge from the desires and commitments of our members. The search for the settled rabbi to lead CBH into its next chapter will emerge from this visioning. On the other side of this liminal time, CBH will emerge with a new rabbi and a new vision for its future. Members will be engaged in new ways. The immense talents and energy of the community will be harnessed toward fostering a rich life of Jewish practice and learning, and novel approaches to repairing our broken world. On the other side of the COVID-19 pandemic, we'll be faced with learning from the experience, with reinventing how we do Jewish once it is safe to gather. And we'll need to redouble our commitment to forging a more just, equitable, and kind society. But what about in the meantime? What will sustain and guide us in the liminal space, our midbar, our wilderness? When our people were in the wilderness, they were sustained. They were sustained by manna, the miraculous food that God provided, that they had only to go outside to find and gather. They were sustained by the Mishkan, the portable sanctuary, including the Ark of the Covenant that traveled with them. And they were sustained by being the Jewish people, by the sense of being part of community. What are the tools that will sustain and guide us in the midst of this liminal space? I'd like to point out 4 touchstones for being on the threshold. First, we will be sustained by remembering where we came from. The rabbis teach that there was not one Ark of the Covenant that our ancestors schlepped through the wilderness, but 2. One in the middle of the camp and one a short distance ahead, pointing the way between stops on the journey. The rabbis say that the Ark in the center of the camp contained the new tablets written by Moses after he dashed the first set to the ground in fury over the golden calf. The other Ark, the one that traveled ahead of us, contained the broken tablets. Why were we preceded by the broken tablets? Because our past cannot be left behind. We need to carry the broken parts of ourselves and our past with gentle reverence. We need to tell of our less than perfect past, our fights and failures, not just our triumphs, our pettiness, not just our lofty accomplishments. We cannot learn from our past if we tell only the pretty part. We cannot grow if we do not acknowledge our flaws. We need to tell the truth, the whole story. Second, we'll be guided in the wilderness by tending our souls, by honing what Musar, the Jewish ethical tradition, calls midot, or soul traits. What traits do we need to cultivate? We need to cultivate rachamim, compassion, for ourselves and one another. We need to practice savlanut, patience. As Ed Catmull says, to linger in this uncomfortable place without panicking. We need to develop anava, humility and curiosity. We need to allow ourselves to not know, to wonder and be curious about the path ahead. And we need to work at hachna'ah, yielding, letting go. As Susan Beaumont puts it, to submit to the powerful reality of what is. This is what we do in the Shemitah year. Every 7 years, we're commanded in this special year to release all debts, release the land from being worked, release ourselves from habitual patterns that keep us from awareness. The Torah teaches, V'zeh devar hashmitah shamot. Regarding the matter of Shemitah, stop your customary behavior and let it go. This new year is a Shemitah year, this 7th year of the cycle, the time for stopping and letting go. Rabbi Jonathan Slater teaches, in this coming year, we can observe Shemitah simply by stopping what we are doing without reflection or consideration and allowing the world to present itself to be known anew, to cultivate mindful awareness. Third touchstone. We will be sustained if we mine the riches of our tradition for spiritual sustenance. Now is the time to deepen our spiritual practice, not just to come to services, but to explore what it means to open our hearts in prayer. Now is the time to engage in meditation, even if we are not the meditating type, even if we are, as I used to say, not good at it. We need to learn to be here now, to listen to direction from our deepest core, from the Shekhinah, the indwelling divine within and among us. And now is the time to look for wisdom in our texts and tradition, to engage in Torah study in the broadest sense. The Talmud teaches, HaTorah hi tavlin, Torah is medicine. Dipping into Torah is a balm, replacing our isolation with connection to the thousands-year-old dialogue of our people with the text. Studying Torah is a treasure hunt. We are sure to find insight that we couldn't imagine. And studying Torah is meant to be done b'chevruta, with friends. It is a community building activity. Finally, the fourth touchstone. We need to say Hineni, here I am. We need to say Hineni, we're here to one another, to reach out, to support one another, just as in the wilderness, we were specifically enjoined to watch out for the vulnerable, the stragglers. We need to say Hineni, here we are, as we build communitas, a new solidarity. We must not rely only on our old structures or lack thereof. We need to personally say, Hineni, here I am. Don't assume someone else will do it. Step up in this very special time. We are in the midst, in the liminal space as we greet this new year. Hamakom, merciful God, whom we call the place. On this place, this threshold, may we be open to possibility. May we remain kind and soft. May we draw on the riches of our tradition. May we let go of old disappointments and expectations and open to what can be. And merciful God, may we meet this moment as a Beit Chaverim, a home for beloved friends and community. Kei Nihi Ratzon, so may it be God's will.